my whole body turned hot with shame. I thought to myself, what happened? How did this happen? How did I go from being caring and compassionate to this, to somebody people are afraid of and really don't like? And that's why I wrote this book, because I believe that there's no such thing as a good manager or a bad manager. They all reside within us. And it's not power, but pressure that corrupts us and causes us, when untended, to act out in ways that have a really harmful impact on our people. And when we have that impact on our people, guess what? They're not only playing video games, but as research shows, they even deliberately making mistakes and sabotaging results. It's not just the people, but your business results are going to tank, and that's going to create more pressure and create this vicious cycle. So that's why I wrote this book, because I have so much compassion for managers under pressure.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun about all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Sabina Nawaz. Sabina is an executive coach who advises C-level executives and teams at Fortune 500 corporations, government agencies, nonprofits, and academic institutions around the world. She routinely gives speeches each year and teaches faculty at Northeastern and Drexel universities. During her 14-year tenure at Microsoft, she went from managing software development teams to leading the company's executive development and succession planning efforts for over 11,000 managers and nearly 1,000 executives, advising Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer directly. She has written for and been featured in Harvard Business Review, Wall Street Journal, Forbes Incorporated, Fast Company, NBC, NASDAQ, and MarketWatch. You can learn more about Sabina at sabinanawaz.com. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Sabina.
Sabina, welcome to the Corporate Couch this morning.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Oh, yeah. Very honored and excited that you are a guest. You have a fascinating background, advisor to both Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer at Microsoft. Been running your own company for 20 plus years. Your new book came out in March, and it helps not only mainly new managers, but all types of leaders. So very excited to talk to you. But let's start with a fun question. Even that people know you fairly well, Sabina, what one thing would surprise them about you?
Right out the gate, what's one thing that would surprise people about me is that I'm a trained stunt fighter.
Really? Have you appeared in any movies?
Oh, no, not at the professional level, but I received a lot of training in stunt fighting.
Now, that's not like a normal path for, like, I would say most people. How did you do that?
My husband and I started a theater company while we were still working at Microsoft. And as part of that, because it was an amateur theater company, we brought in a lot of professionals to train us. And we got a lot of training in stunt fighting.
So I'm even more impressed with your background now. You know, you got your master's in computer science, and started your career in software development, moved to HR, and now. But what was this theater aspect? Were you a performer in high school or college, or talk about where your love came for that?
I just always had a love of theater, and yes, we did a lot of plays in high school or even middle school.
Yeah.
And when I took my first theater class in Washington, the instructor was fabulous. And he said, for every 100 auditions, you'll get cast maybe in one place. So don't get dispirited as you go out there.
Right.
And I thought, oh, no, I won't. I'll start my own theater company so that I can be
And guess who
in
had the
those
lead
plays.
in every production? You. No, I mean,
Not
no.
necessarily the lead, but be on stage. And of course, little did I know that that running a theater company came with a lot of responsibility as well. But that was also great training in leadership to do that. If you can run a community theater company with a bunch of volunteers and a shoestring budget,
Sure.
Everything else is easy.
Yeah, as well as it improved your public speaking skills. Yeah.
And so much more.
Yeah, my son went to the University of Cincinnati in their musical theater conservatory program, so he spent a lot. So I've been involved in just watching a lot of productions, not running a theater company, but I know the process, and you got to be very comfortable with rejection in that industry. Like you said, for every 100 auditions, you get one or two jobs. So there you go. Yeah. Where did you grow up, Sabina, and what was fun for you growing up?
I grew up in Calcutta, India. One of the things that was really fun is this extended community and extended family. It felt like it was a party all the time, and people would just come. You didn't have to make appointments and schedule things and work around a bunch of things. Someone would just ring the doorbell, and it would be some aunt or uncle or friend. And that was just a really nice surround to grow up in, to be held by and loved by so many people in an extended family system.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I grew up in about an hour from New York City, and my ethnicity is Italian, and a lot of family. So like aunts and uncles were either at our house during the week, or we were at their house. It was people would come on.
These big gatherings.
People would come unannounced, which in today's world, people ring the doorbell and nobody wants to answer. It's like, whoa, who's there? Oh God, versus before, people were excited. Oh, somebody's here to see us, company,
right.
So
right.
Yeah. So any aspirations growing up? Did you have, like, I want to be a doctor, an astronaut, a teacher? Did you have anything like that?
A doctor initially, and which, so many people do. And in the culture, there was very much a push towards doctors and engineers. And then as I was growing up, English and physics were my two favorite subjects. And then I thought, what's a practical way to bring physics into the world? That would be through engineering. I first joined college in India and then transferred to Smith as a junior to study computer science. But in the state that I was in, I did not score high enough to be admitted into computer science. 20,000 people take an exam for engineering and medicine. The first 20 out of 20,000 get to study computer science. My rank was 800 and something, so I got slotted into architecture. So there's a hierarchy of fields you study based on your rank.
Right.
And while I loved drawing and painting, architecture was just not my jam.
Right.
So I'm really grateful that my mom helped really push me and support me to apply to universities in the US and transfer.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's kind of like the Jack Welch school of stack ranking. Yeah,
it's very rigid, very structured, and you don't really have a lot of choice aside from the ones that fall lower in the hierarchy.
Yeah. What was your journey after you graduated from Smith with your BA in computer science?
Well, then I immediately went into my master's program at University of Massachusetts. And after doing that, I sent out 180 job applications. And out of those 180, Microsoft was the very first one to call me, to interview me on the phone, to fly me over for an interview. And I thought, I had never been to Seattle. I'd never even heard of Microsoft. It was a 6,000 person organization in those days. And there wasn't as much searchability on the web, but learned about William Gates III and so on. And I thought, hey, I've never been to Seattle. It's a free trip. Why not?
Sure.
Because I was pretty much thinking I'd be working on the East Coast. And by my third interview, I had 8 interviews. By my third interview, Jeff, I was in love with the place.
Yeah.
And the reason I was in love with the place was because the people seemed so genuine and so excited to be there, so
Right.
passionate about what they were doing, that I thought, I want a piece of that. They are all lit up, their eyes are sparkling, and I want that sparkle in my eyes. And so that's how, after Smith, after UMass, I started my journey at Microsoft.
Yeah, I love.
Unfortunately, go ahead.
No, I said I love that. Yeah, go on. I have a question, but go on.
Well, I was going to say that while I was excited to come to Microsoft, after my first year, I nearly got fired, because what I discovered at that time, and what my boss discovered, was that I was not doing great at coding. So the act of coding was not my sweet spot. It really wasn't.
Right.
And gosh, it was embarrassing, scary, debilitating, disappointing to come face to face with that. But once we did, fortunately for me, my boss was also super supportive in brainstorming what are some other technical jobs that you can do. And in one meeting, we came up with a job that was technical in computer science that I could do and that I started thriving in. So it was a matter of finding what element of the job was the thing that would bring out the best in me, would bring out that sparkle in me.
Right.
And somebody giving me that chance. After that, it was wonderful.
So interesting. So you had a degree in computer science. I took the business degree route and had a degree in information systems. But I started my career with AT&T as a software developer, and and I would say my path was similar. You know, I was good in math. I was good at logical thinking. So my code was decent. You know, but it wasn't my passion. So I'm so intrigued about how you kind of made the pivot from, software development and some other technical jobs to start your career to end up as a senior director of HR, developing curriculum for, 11,000 managers at Microsoft, and, developing the high potential program and the succession planning for those high potential. I just love to hear that pivot.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, I did work in software development for over 9 years and ran larger and larger groups and managed aspects of major products like Windows, MSN, Internet Explorer, also a bunch of version 0 products that went nowhere. And then Microsoft had a sabbatical program. You reach a certain level of seniority and tenure and have a good performance record, you get 8 weeks off. Unlike an academic sabbatical, there are no expectations of you doing any work during those 8 weeks. Now, this was the first time in my life that my familiar friend and companion, hard work, was not called upon.
Right.
And instead of jamming those 8 weeks full, I traveled for 3 weeks. I started my nonprofit theater company during that time, but I also had a ton of time to just sit around and do nothing. I mean, literally, I had this white leather couch facing an big old maple tree in our yard. And I just sat on the couch and slept a lot and stared at that maple tree a lot. And of course, when we allow our brains to rest, amazing insights start to show up. One insight that showed up for me was that it was no longer a matter of if but when I would become a corporate vice president. At that point in my career, almost a decade in, that was absolutely a goal of mine. And as soon as I realized that I could do it, that I knew the formula for getting there, I was completely disinterested in it, which shocked the heck out of me.
Right.
And so then I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do with my life? And that's where I started thinking. I talked to a bunch of friends. One of my strengths had been people saying, you're one of the best managers I've ever had. And so I thought, well, let me go help the manager community at Microsoft. So that's how that part of the journey started. Now, of course, I had no formal training in management development, and the company had 11,000 managers. Fortunately, the hiring manager took a chance on me. She'd seen me talk somewhere. So I brought in my practical, road-tested skills of being a manager. My team had all the professional background and grounding in adult learning and development, and we collaborated together to create magic. And of course, over the years, I got trained on a number of things myself.
So interesting. And why do you think you became disinterested? I mean, obviously you were on this path, you know, in the IT space at Microsoft. I mean, you were there during the really boom days. I mean, starting from 1990, you know, so now you were talking about, you know, 99, 2000, you make
Yep.
this career
Yep.
pivot. And I'll just say,
Yep.
having worked in IT, and I've been the kind of the business partner in sales and marketing for IT for a long portion of my career. You know, most IT people don't make a career pivot to HR. So talk about that. And
What?
yeah, I mean, what was your learning
Yeah.
process? Obviously, you know, like any great leader, you had great people with the expertise in learning and development and different HR skills that you were responsible for. So you leaned on them. But what was your kind of
Right.
learning process to get, you know, better and become an expert in that space?
Okay. So you've got two questions. One was why was it anticlimactic? Why did I make this pivot? What was the letdown there? And then what was my learning process? I think the why goes to, it's a complicated question. I loved what I was doing. So the good news is I wasn't running away from something. In fact, my manager at the time said, blank check. What would it take to keep you here? Don't want to lose you. So I knew I had a safety net, but I think part of it was also while I was having a great time doing it, I always want to have that learning edge, that feeling of, oh my gosh, am I going to get fired or am I going to learn? You know, it's that am I going to forge new frontiers or am I just going to fall off a cliff? That's my adrenaline rush, if you will. And it took off the adrenaline rush by knowing that I would make it to the next step and the next step and getting promoted. The other one might be a bit of thinking I wanted a title and the glory of that title, this sort of becoming something as opposed to being somebody.
Interesting, yeah.
And what really feeds me, the title, the whatever, the kudos, the puffery that comes with, well, I'm a corporate vice president at Microsoft Corporation.
Right.
Well, good for you. If that does feed you, great. But for me, I think it was more about the ego, the show of it, and maybe the way in which I was brought up and the glorification of heroes and people with titles and people with all sorts of privileges. And so I think that for me, it was a wake-up call that, well, what really is going to keep me learning and keep me on my edge? And that brings us to this great question of learning. How did I learn? Well, the first way I learned was by being thrown off the deepest end of one of the deepest pools. I was in meetings with Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer almost right away. And they're expecting me to give them answers of how are we going to do succession planning? How are we going to do talent development for our top talent? What are we going to do with our executives, not just our managers? And so figuring out very quickly how to listen and learn. And by very quickly, don't get me wrong, the first year I came up with some suggestions and solutions and ran an annual process for the execs. And Steve said, Sabina, the glass is filling, but it's not half full, which was a very polite way of saying, don't screw it up next year. Right. So then I, did the traditional stuff. I leaned on my team a lot. Anytime I was speaking in front of an audience, somebody on my team was sitting in the back of the room and would give me feedback. And I really encouraged direct feedback. We had a very strong culture of direct feedback with each other. They told me so many times where I had screwed up or what I should do differently or how I'd let someone off the hook, so on. I benchmarked, along with people on my team, 30 different companies on how they did leadership development, high potential development, succession planning. And then, of course, learning from the other executives who are preparing for the sessions I'm running for Bill and Steve. How are they thinking about talent? Where are their blinders on? How can we get everybody thinking enterprise-wide? So a lot of that. And then attending training, reading, learning from people more experienced than me externally as well. We had a number of vendors who would come and run classes and sessions, and I would say, hey, can I be a baby coach in your session and learn at your feet?
Yeah, so interesting. Microsoft's obviously a lot bigger than when you first started there with 6,000 employees. Did you have a lot of internal training teams? Like when I was at Sprint, we had like a combination. We had the University of Excellence fantastic training. And we both had internal, Sprint employees as trainers, as well as, external, like we did Covey's 7 Habits, a week-long class, and went deep into that. But we'd love to hear how your process went.
We definitely had a lot of internal training in addition to the external trainings. Absolutely off-the-shelf stuff, customized stuff, you name it, from the outside, and a bevy of executive coaches that we would hire for the execs in the company, but also people internally, myself included, would coach some executives. And there are pros and cons to having internal and external coaches. But we also had internal trainers, designers,
Sure.
facilitators, both in the central group that I was running, but also in different divisions, especially in the sales division. There's a lot of emphasis on training. There was a lot of sales specific training and development that was being done there as well.
Yeah. So you pivoted out of IT 9 years. You're now, after about 5-6 years, an expert in your field, I'll call it. You're at Microsoft, senior director. There's a lot of benefits there. What was the pivot to say, hey, I'm going to go out and do my own thing?
Well, Jeff, I had a 2-year-old at home, and I think it was 8 months pregnant, 7 months pregnant, something like that, with my second kid when I chose to leave.
Yeah.
I didn't even take parental leave, which I could have before leaving. And again, I had a blank check from Steve this time to say, what would it take for you to stay? I was very fortunate, incredible privilege, because my husband stayed home with the kids. So it wasn't a logistical challenge,
Right.
which affects many women in the workplace. It was more, what regret would I have when my kids are teenagers? That I didn't do more work with Bill and Steve, or that I didn't spend enough time with them.
Right.
And that's why I left. And the reason I left while I was still pregnant with the second one was I thought, these 2 months, this is the only time, most likely in our lives, that it'll be just the 3 of us,
Right.
before it becomes the 4
Wow.
of us. So this is a really unique opportunity. Let me take advantage of that. Now, do I have regrets that I haven't spent enough time with my kids now that they're much older? Absolutely. Would I have had even more regret? Probably.
Yeah. So interesting. Just one last Microsoft question. I'm just curious. What was kind of the main differences of the leadership styles of Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer?
The Walter Isaacson has a great book. I forget the name, maybe Innovators, where he talks about many, many organizations that have started because of the magic combination of the co-founders, and that many of them are co-founders, not just single people. Apple, Microsoft being a couple of those. And so I think that Bill's deep technical focus, Steve's focus on sales, marketing, on the business side of things was a wonderful combination.
Yeah. So talk about, okay, now you're a consultant, you're building your own practice. I'm assuming after you gave birth to your second child, but talk about that, the early days, and you leave the kind of the safety and security of, being a high level executive at Microsoft. What was your biggest surprise and challenge when you first started?
The biggest surprise was how much I loved it.
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
The biggest surprise was how much I loved it. I actually had 2 gigs before giving birth while I was 9 months pregnant. And they were with people I had already worked with at Microsoft. So I went back and did a couple of small projects with them. I just absolutely adored my work. And one of the things I loved about it, in addition to the actual work of coaching and facilitating leadership sessions with teams, was the variety. I had grown up at Microsoft, and that had been my only corporate job. So getting this real insider behind the scenes view, sitting side by side with CEOs of corporations or presidents of universities or managing directors of research labs, was an incredible privilege, learning experience, joy, and a place where I felt I could make an impact, all combined together. Most days I'd wake up and go, I cannot believe I'm getting paid to do this job. I would do it for free.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So, you become this elite executive coach where you're, working with, C-level executives at Fortune 500 companies and their teams, in terms of improving their leadership skills and things like that. When did you decide to write the book, You're the Boss? I mean, I want to talk a lot about that book because I'm fascinated by it, because I always said there's so many companies, and it's surprising, even large companies, that just throw individual contributors thinking once you give them the title, they're going to be just these great leaders. Like, yeah, okay, but they give them no training, no guidance, no mentorship. So, I think we can weave into a lot of your coaching philosophy based on your book. But talk about that process and your learnings, because I'm fascinated. You used, I think it was 12,000 pages of 360-degree reviews you did with your thousands of Fortune 500 clients. And so, yeah, just walk me through that.
Yeah, over 1,000 interviews. Yes. So of course, there's many paths that led to it. So I didn't have another 8-week sabbatical, Jeff. So it wasn't this one moment of crystal clarity. But here are a few paths that merged together to get to the book. One, all my clients telling me, oh my God, where's your book? Like, surely you have a book. They all assumed I already had a book. And we need this. I found myself saying the same thing several times. So that's how I actually first started writing for Harvard Business Review. Because I thought, let me scale this up and bring this democratized leadership. Why should this only be for people who can pay large sums of money to an executive coach? Let's spread this out as much as we can, because the job of leadership can be done by anybody, anywhere, in any role. You don't have to have the title and the power and the paycheck. So there was that piece of spreading it out and democratizing that leadership. It was all the data that I had gathered, where my husband said, what are you doing just sitting on all this data? Do something with it. But at the heart of it, it was also my own story, which was, I told you one part of it where people said, oh, you're the best manager we've had. And when I first started in management development, that was also true. But then I became a lousy manager. It started the first day I'm coming back from parental leave after my first son was born. And I'm putting on lipstick for the first time in 5 months. My assistant, Lori, calls me, frantic. Where are you? Steve expects you in 30 minutes. That would be Steve Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft. I'm hitting warp speed on the freeway to get there while Lori is reading me the memo I'm supposed to discuss with him. And that set the pace and tone for my return to work. Inbox overflowing, calendar jam-packed, infant at home. So no sleep, no peace, no patience. And overnight, I morphed from being caring and patient and nurturing to snippy and short. Still 5'3" short, but now short-tempered. I'm micromanaging. I'm double guessing everybody. Who has time to give detailed instructions, let alone repeat them? And I thought I was being efficient until my colleague Joe walks in and goes, Zach is crying in his office because of what you said to him. My whole body turned hot with shame. I mean, I couldn't make eye contact with Joe. And I thought to myself, what happened? How did this happen? How did I go from being caring and compassionate to this, to somebody people are afraid of and really don't like? And that's why I wrote this book, because I believe that there's no such thing as a good manager or a bad manager. They all reside within us. And it's not power, but pressure that corrupts us.
Right.
Corrupts us and causes us, when untended, to act out in ways that have a really harmful impact on our people.
Yeah.
And when we have that impact on our people, guess what? They're not only playing video games, but as research shows, they even deliberately making mistakes and sabotaging results. So it's not just the people, but your business results are going to tank, and that's going to create more pressure and create this vicious cycle. So that's why I wrote this book, because I have so much compassion for managers under pressure.
But do you think the pressure results from your upper management, whether that's your direct manager or above that, applying the pressure, right? So they're not being good leaders. So I'd love your take on that.
Pressure comes from all angles, inside and outside. It's everywhere. It's constant. It is not possible to be pressure-free. Now, if you manage pressure well, you can become pressure-proof. You can tackle it more intentionally, because when you're not tackling it intentionally, your best intentions are turning into these destructive habits, right? For me, it didn't just squeeze out my time, it squeezed out my humanity. I wouldn't say that managers above are not doing a good job if they're putting down the pressure. Some of that pressure they should be putting down, because if you buffer your employees too much, then suddenly you find yourself out on the pavement,
right,
and you don't have a sense of urgency. So as a manager, you need to apply the appropriate amount of pressure mindfully. In addition to the pressure that's coming from above, pressure is coming from sideways. It's coming externally. Look at the pressures from the political landscape, the geopolitical landscape, the macroeconomics, the advent of AI and what that is doing and how it can be disruptive. But also there's the pressures we generate ourselves.
right.
For example, I often tell my clients, don't go to work hungry for praise, hungry for affirmation, hungry for being seen as the smartest person in the room.
Right.
Because if you do, you're going to indulge in junk behaviors, just like we do when our grocery cart gets filled up with, in my case, ketchup chips and salted caramels when I go there hungry, right? So how do we feed ourselves and nurture ourselves in a way that we can stay strategic and stay focused on what the real issue is, rather than feeding ourselves in junk ways?
Yeah, and I have not read your book yet, and I researched it with reviews, and you were kind enough to send information on it. Part of it is knowing thyself, so the Socrates, know thyself. Talk about that in terms of how that helps someone become a better leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing your hungers, for example, and You're the Boss has a table called the Hunger Tracker, where you can actually see what you are doing and how it maps to a hunger, and therefore what you can do about it. So it's harder for, if I just said, hey, Jeff, what are your unmet hungers? You're going to go, what?
Right.
And who made you my psychologist? I know this is the corporate couch, but not the psych couch, right? So, but if you are able to look at your actual actions or your words, it's much easier for you to connect the dots and go, oh my gosh, yeah. So if I'm hungry, I'm overly hungry to please other people and be liked by other people, so I'm never giving them the tough feedback. No wonder we're not making progress on this initiative, or it's not improving. That would be one way to start. The other thing in You're the Boss, at the very end, there's a set of 42 questions called 360 Yourself. That is, do a self-assessment and see which pressure pitfalls or which power gaps are getting you most. And then apply some of the tools that we discuss to get past that. Now, if you don't have time for all 42 questions, which takes about 15 minutes, you can ask yourself these few. As a manager, are you the only one who comes up with new ideas? Do people never disagree or debate something you say? Are you the only one who's working hard to populate the agenda for the team meeting, to bring in speakers, to do everything? These are some tells that you're veering off into some of the most common pressure pitfalls and power gaps in your role.
Very interesting. You mentioned in the book the manager yes list. What talk about that?
Look, I'm an engineer by training. And so for me, success with the book is not somebody read it and they said they enjoyed reading it. Success is they actually were able to take some action and sustain it. Sometimes people read a book, myself included, and we do something with it for the first week or 2 weeks, maybe a month, but a year later, we've forgotten everything. So the yes list is a way to make your action sticky in a very simple 20-second manner. It is a twin of something called micro habits that I also discuss. Micro habits are things that are tiny and they're habitual. So what that means is when you identify one of your gaps that you want to work on, your power gaps or one of your pressure pitfalls. And let's say one of them is that you're not taking enough care of yourself first, and you need to be better at taking care of your physical health. Now, most people, when we talk about that, they'll go, okay, starting next week, I'm going to go to the gym half hour every morning before I do anything else. And I'm going to call BS on that.
Right.
Just like your face is saying that,
I'm
Jeff, don't play
very
poker
familiar
ever.
with yeah.
Exactly. It never happens, which is why most of us don't even make New Year's resolutions anymore, because we know they're complete works of fiction. Because we're trying to set a goal that's too high. If the only thing we're working out is our behind because we're binge watching shows, we're not going to go from that couch potato to working out 30 minutes every morning. So what's a micro habit? How small do you need to make it for you to be able to do it? So people will tell me, well, 10 minutes. Okay, I'll do like 50 push-ups at home. And I'll go, nope, not going to happen, not going to happen, not going to happen, until they go to one push-up.
Right.
And we know you've hit a micro habit. And you get this look on your face and you laugh out loud. Like, come on, one push-up? Of course I can do it. Like, great. You're only going to get credit for one push-up. You can do the bonus work, but you give yourself credit for that one. So you take 2 or 3 micro habits. Let's say listening is another micro habit that you want to boil down to a micro habit at work. Maybe I've paraphrased somebody else once every day, not in every meeting, not all the time, once a day. So the yes list has these 3 things that I'm working on that are micro habits. At the end of the day, while I'm brushing my teeth, getting ready for bedtime, I just go yes, no, yes, no. Did I do it or not?
Right.
And sometimes if it's a micro habit, here's the fun part. Oh, I didn't do my one push-up today. Okay, drop down, do it right now with toothbrush in mouth. Yeah. Done, check. And that psychologically gives us so much joy now to come back the next day. Who wants to come back the next day feeling like a loser?
Right.
Oh, I didn't do my thing. Yeah. Oh, now we come up with excuses and hide behind busy.
Right.
But if we said, yes, I did it, it wasn't that hard, I'm much more likely to do it the next day.
Yeah.
And that is the yes list.
Yeah, I love that. And I don't know if it is one of the many great people that gave you testimonials for your book. You had Adam Grant, Marshall Goldsmith, Kim Scott, the author of Radical Candor, or it was actually in some of the info you sent me. But I really love you explain, why is integrity more important than authenticity?
You have done your homework, Jeff, whether or not you read the book. I believe that there is no such thing as the singular form of the word authenticity. Authenticity is plural. Here's why. Jeff, you're a podcast host. Okay. Are you also a sibling?
Yes.
Okay. Are you a partner?
Yes.
Are you a parent?
Yes.
Okay. What else? What other roles do you play?
A friend, uncle, I'm a pop's grandfather.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, a lot of roles.
Do you show up exactly the same in all of these roles? Podcast and as pops?
I think I do. But yeah, that's a little bit different. Like you and I have only met once, and obviously,
right. Yeah, absolutely. There's a core piece of you that remains the same, and there are certain things that are going to be very different. How you deal with me versus how you deal with the producer of your show versus how you deal with a newborn grandchild are going to be different, and they should be different. Right. So which one is your authentic self? All of them.
Right.
Here's the other thing. Authenticity is not static. And when people say, oh, I've got to be me, I've got to be my authentic self, they're often actually resisting change. If authenticity were static, we would still be that newborn throwing up on strangers' shoulders.
Right.
So we have to push the boundaries of authenticity to learn what's our new authentic self. Yeah. Underneath authenticity, a lot of times when people say they don't want to give up their authenticity, what they really mean is, I don't want to give up my values. I want to be in integrity with my values. Right. Now, values do have a hierarchy, and we might compromise one value for another value.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean by integrity being more important than authenticity.
Yeah. Another thing you talk about in the book, and I love this because I've had this. Are you familiar with Debbie Millman? She's a designer. She runs the New York Design School. She runs around with the Seth Godins of the world and Tim Ferriss's, and she's just very transparent. But she had a quote in a Tim Ferriss podcast back in 2016. I really loved it. and you talk about busyness is a trap. It's a choice and a trap. And she basically said the same thing. So I'd love for you to elaborate on your thinking on this.
Often busyness is a proxy for I'm very important. Think about how often we greet each other and go, how are you, busy? And what do you think would happen if I said, yeah, no, I'm not so busy? Ooh, a has-been,
Right.
clearly doesn't have
Yeah.
enough clients,
Underachiever.
underachiever, put out to pasture, moocher of somebody else, not earning their paycheck. I mean, we have all these judgments of somebody who's not busy, not recognizing that busy actually gets in the way of sometimes deeper, truer impact.
Right.
And so we hide behind it because of some societal expectations, but also because it keeps us off the hook from doing what might be the real work,
Yeah.
the more important work. When I was writing my master's thesis, that's when my laundry was most up to date. I was busy doing laundry.
Right.
In the world of work, we're busy with email and meetings,
Yeah.
as opposed to having that tough conversation we're avoiding, where we need to give feedback to
Yeah.
an employee,
Yeah.
or really sitting down and pivoting the strategy because the world has been disrupted.
Right.
Oh no, let's just keep rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic by saying we're busy.
Right. Talk about some of the things that you've seen, and I'm sure is in your book, in terms of what are some of the kind of blind spots that somebody that individual contributor, now a manager, that hinders their growth, or dysfunctional behaviors because they just don't know any better. Talk about those things.
One of the immediate blind spots, if you're just getting promoted, actually any stage of promotion, whether you're going from a peer individual contributor to a manager, or whether you're going from a manager to manager of managers, you're going from manager of managers to
Right.
executives. Getting promoted is the most dangerous time in your career. The very strength that got you there is now going to be viewed not as an asset, but as a liability by the necks that are craning upward. Let me break this down for you. What would you say is one of your key strengths?
Maybe my sense of humor, or I really care about people. I'll go with either one of those.
Okay, great. So you really care about people. All right. Fantastic attribute to have. And you should absolutely 100% continue to do that as you get promoted. But let's say, and I'm not saying this is the case for you, but let's say you really care about people, you get promoted into a manager of manager role, and you now need to really, and the division is struggling. They're not meeting their numbers. They're not meeting their goals. You're going to have to provide some tough feedback to people. But because you really care about them, you're afraid to provide them with that tough feedback. You might have to let go of some people and you're not doing it. So how is that going to be viewed by people from below? Jeff is wishy-washy, indecisive, doesn't have enough of a backbone. I'm having to take on more of the load. Jeff is playing favorites. These may not be true, but that very skill of empathy and caring is going to be viewed in those ways. And that often comes as a big surprise to managers, of course.
Right.
Like, well, don't I need to be empathetic? Yes, you just need to insert an and. The and is, okay, so if my skill is caring about people, how is that going to be viewed by people who are not sitting in the power position that I'm in, who are beholden to me because of my power position? So if it's showing up that way, what do I need to do? I need to communicate my intention better. I need to understand what they need and meet those needs. Because now the way I care, it's using that very skill of caring to now care more about how it's being viewed by them and therefore how you meet their needs.
Yeah, I love that, and it reminds me of I'm a big Marshall Goldsmith fan. And he wrote the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, and it's kind of your theory, right? You have to adapt, and what your strength, in case of my example, caring. I have to look at it with the and. What else do I need to do to make sure people are achieving goals and correcting issues and things like that. So I love that. It's funny. I ask every guest two questions at the end of the podcast. Your whole book answers one of them, but which is, once anybody can be a leader, like we've talked about, but those that take the path that become a manager and responsible for a team of people, what advice would you give them? But you already did that. But any other things that you want to talk about in terms of your book, and why is it different? Because I'm excited to read it, and I just think it's a fascinating study, and especially I'm a data-driven person. When when you're interview thousands of Fortune 500 executives and have 12,000 pages of 360-degree data, I love that. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I can still answer that question of what's one piece of advice. And as a manager, I would say every action has a reaction, going back to Newtonian physics. So are you aware of the reaction your actions are eliciting? And it's a double bind. And this is one thing that's distinctive about this book, is that it busts several myths. And one of the myths it busts is that it is not power that corrupts, but pressure. So pressure is this silent corruptor, and then power is this great divider. So you will be the last person to find out the reaction your action is causing. So how are you going to design a system in which you're going to get that news early and often? And part of that is the art of receiving feedback, which is directly proportional. The quality of feedback you receive is directly proportional to the quality of question you ask.
Right.
If you say, how did I do? They're going to go, you did great, boss.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're starting a secret chat about how much you sucked. So instead, if you said, what's one thing that I did well? What's one thing if I did differently, it would have gone even better? So make it simple,
Yep.
Make it bite-sized, or make it third person. Like if my biggest fan was sitting in the room, what would they have said? If my biggest critic was sitting in the room, what would they have said? So now it makes it safer for me to give you that feedback. And the bigger the power gap, the more important it is for you to be mindful how you elicit that input, so you know the reaction to your action.
Yeah, I love that. I used back in mid-90s a simple feedback for myself. I just said, please fill this out, these two questions. I like working with Jeff because, and the other thing was, I would love working with Jeff more if.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Were these anonymous, or did they have to put their names?
I made it anonymous. I said you can put your names, Lovely. But I made it anonymous. So was that appropriate making it anonymous, or should I?
Well, especially as you're starting, I think over time, the more trust you build, hopefully you can.
Now the people that hand wrote it, I couldn't tell their handwriting, but it wasn't anonymous. Anything else you would like to talk about the book or your consulting, and do you have a second book in mind?
Two things. One, we've talked about power just now, and getting truth told to power when you're in a position of power, so you know the effect you're having on people. So let's also look at the twin force of pressure. And when you're under pressure, and who here today is not under tremendous pressure, the best thing to do is to do nothing. This is a practice I call blank space, where you step away from everything, no electronics, no reading, no talking, and you just step back to allow insights to come, to allow thoughts to come. Now, sometimes that's really hard to do. So you can start with micro habit of not just in the shower, but maybe you spend 30 seconds in the morning before you touch any devices to just be completely silent, and then slowly increase that. The second thing I would add is, for those of you who do check out the book, You're the Boss, and buy it, go to my website, sabinanawaz.com. And there are downloadable templates and tools of the many road-tested tools that we're talking about here today. So you can apply them immediately to your own challenges and goals.
Just two more questions. One, didn't talk about, who were your big leadership mentors? Like who, really impacted the way Sabina went through kind of being the best leader she could be?
I don't have two that I can pinpoint. It was just about everybody I worked with in terms of what to do and what not to do. And sometimes the what to do and what not to do came from the exact same person. Because again, there are no purely good or bad bosses. They all reside within us. So I would say every single person who managed me, plus I had the privilege of working with so many different executives, that has really taught me things. I still to this day learn from my clients. And then I tell them, I say, I'm going to steal that idea and I'm going to pass it on to my other clients as well. So we can all
Yeah.
elevate our
Yeah.
game.
And that's why I love doing the podcast. I learned so much from great people like yourself.
Yes.
So it's wonderful. The last question, this is one of the two questions I ask every guest, but think back when Smith College days and you graduate and, I know you went right to your MBA, your master's program. But for those that start their professional journey and get their first job, what advice will you have as they begin that journey, as well as any advice on getting that first job?
It's a tough job market, a much tougher job market now than when you and I started, Jeff. And anything you can do to nurture relationships would be the best thing to make inroads. And you might go, well, dude, I don't have that network. How am I going to nurture the relationships? You do. Like your classmate's parent might be in an industry that your classmate is not interested in, but you are. So look at 2 to 3 degrees separation and see if you can get others to broker connections for you. And for the first job, you talked a lot about learning. I would encourage people to remain curious and to unlearn on a regular basis. What assumptions, what conclusions have you jumped to that are actually not going to help you in every successive day of your job?
Right.
So constantly be questioning your assumptions. And there is a tool called Multiple Meanings in the book that you can use to practice that.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't wait to check that out. One thing I will say about recent college graduates, I think everybody has a little bit of trauma from their getting that first job out of college or high school, whatever choice they take. And I always tell when I give advice to recent college graduates, because I do a little 6-week class to help them navigate that. I tell them, everybody's empathetic towards you because everybody remembers, so they want to help you. They want to give you your advice and insight and all that.
Yes.
So,
yes. And they want you to succeed.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sabina, I'm so honored that you came on the podcast. You're delightful. And thank you so much.
Jeff, that makes 2 of us. Thank you.
Sabina, wow. A 5'3" powerhouse. We don't have many guests that both advised, worked at Microsoft and advised Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer.
Yeah, Microsoft has a couple 100,000 employees, and I would guess that 99% of them have never even met Bill Gates or have any connection to him at all. And here she is. It sounded like his right hand advisor type person. It was amazing.
Yeah. I love, like their whole journey. Like she started in IT, has a master's in computer science. He goes to HR, builds all these great leadership
Where'd that
development.
come from?
Right. I went to IT from IT to sales and marketing, but
but you were the IT department in sales and marketing, much like I was.
I always said I was the smartest person in sales and marketing in regards to IT. And I used to say that's a low bar, but there you go. Then elite executive coach and writes, a great book, You're the Boss, based on 12,000 pages of over 1,360-degree assessment reviews of Fortune 500 executives. Besides her great wisdom about leadership and all that, she was really just so vulnerable. She talked about, like she worked at Microsoft. She was a bad coder, bad software developer, almost got fired, right? And, and then she becomes a leader in IT, and she made one of her team members cry, and somebody came into her office and said, Zach is crying in his office. And then she thought she was a good leader.
Uh-huh. And that says something about Microsoft as a corporation of how they would nurture something like that. There'd be a lot of corporations that would get rid of her.
Right.
Real soon, and she was never in danger of that. It was kind of an interesting concept.
Well, and then she talked about, she's coming back to work after like 5-month maternity leave, give or take, and her assistant called her on the phone and said, "You have a meeting with Steve Ballmer in 30 minutes," and she's putting her lipstick on in the car, I somehow missed the memo of the meeting, but just so vulnerable. So many pearls of wisdom, this yes list she talked about, the micro habits, don't say you're going to commit to 30 minutes in the gym and wake up at 6 in the morning and do it. Just commit to one push-up.
One push-up.
And at the end of the day, ask yourself, did I do the one push-up? And if you didn't, you do the one push-up right there. So you build the micro habit. Everybody, the famous quote, power corrupts or whatever, but she says power doesn't corrupt, pressure does. And successful people pressure-proof themselves. There were so many tidbits in there. I can't wait to read her book. But Joe, what did you think?
It was amazing, and you're right. There was just one after another of quotable quotes that came from her, and I filled a whole page full of them. I just can't get over how almost nonchalant she was about being a consultant to Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, because I'm the kind of person that I'm in awe of celebrity types, especially celebrities in technology. And if I were to actually meet one of those guys in person, I don't know what I would do. And she was interacting with them literally all the time. I'm kind of reminded of the episodes that Big Bang Theory had, where they had several different episodes where they met technology giants and they were actually guest stars on the show. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Stan Lee, George Lucas, Steve Wozniak were all on the Big Bang Theory at one time or another. And in every case, the characters were just melting through the floor in awe of these guys.
That would be you, Joe.
And that would be me. That would be me. And I almost feel that way knowing that I've edited an episode of Sabina, who knows Bill Gates.
Right.
Like I'm in that kind of aura or something. So
just remember, Joe, if they wear underwear, they put their underwear on one leg at a time, just like you and I.
I'm that way. I can't help it. I can't help myself. But it was a great interview. Tons and tons of quotable quotes from it, and I'm tickled to death to be a part of it.
Joe, we're recording this on a Friday. Any kind of pearls of wisdom or what's going on for the weekend?
I wanted to relay something that happened between me and my girlfriend recently. She said that I can be an idiot sometimes, and I thought that was pretty cool of her to give me permission to do that.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.